All right, guys, so welcome to the video. What we're going to talk about today is purchasing and receiving. This is going to be probably one of maybe 2 or 3 videos, at least probably 3. All right, so what we're going to talk about is purchasing and receiving. Okay, last week we talked about forecasting, and a big part of forecasting, or one of the big purposes of forecasting, is so we can accurately order the things we need. All right, so forecasting the food sales, forecasting beverage sales are topics that we're going to briefly talk about in relationship to last week. Importance of standardized recipes, purchasing food, purchasing beverages, purchase orders, and receiving food and beverage products. That's what we're going to be speaking about. All right, so moving forward. This is a slide that I added onto the publisher's slideshow because this is something that I got from another textbook years ago, and it's a wonderful thing. Right? It is the mindset of someone who has to purchase. All right, purchasing is very closely related to cost control, and we're going to see that here. So the goal of purchasing is to acquire the right product from the right source at the right price in the right amount at the right time, right? So this is cost control. Why do I care about those other things? All I care about is the right price. Well, all of these things can be expensive if it's not the right ... If it's the wrong one, then it could be expensive. The wrong product is expensive because then we have to send it back, or if we can't send it back, we still have to order it. So it's expensive. From the right source. If we're buying from the wrong source, from somebody disreputable or incompetent, that becomes expensive quickly. At the right price, of course, that's what we're talking about here. Doing it at the right price, negotiating for the right price, getting the best price possible. And there's a lot that goes into that. All right, in the right amount. If you buy too much, it wastes and it's expensive. If we buy too little, we have to emergency buy, and that's expensive. All right, at the right time. If we get it too early, it rots. That's expensive. If we get it too late, we have to 86 items, and then people get mad, and it's expensive. Another thing about the right time, if our orders come in during our peak hours, that's expensive because mistakes will be made if you're trying to receive products in at the wrong time, all right, or at a busy time. Okay, so moving forward, when we forecast food, again, we're getting the right amount of food for the right number of guests. So forecasting, we talked about last week forecasting labor. We talked about all these different matrices or metrics that we can forecast. We can forecast anything. We can say, by looking at the past, we know how many, or we have a forecast of how many employees we're going to need, how many meals we're going to serve, how many people come in, how much money we're going to make, how much profit we're going to make, how much this, that, and the other, how much our spending is. We can forecast anything. But for purchasing purposes, we want to forecast one metric is the key, and that is number of guests served, right? With that, we can apply certain mathematical equations to come up exactly of how much each ingredient we need to order. Okay, so just some quick things that influence forecasting. Again, we are now just focusing on people. What influences the amount of people in our restaurant? We look at last year's numbers. Second week of January last year should be the same as this year, with apply maybe a 5% growth or a 3% increase that we found or whatever. But that's not always the case because things might be different. There might be more competitors. Competition might have changed. We have less competitors or more competitors. That will influence weather. That big time influences. Most of the time for restaurants, bad weather will take away. Bad weather at a hotel restaurant sometimes, very often, will increase because people don't want to go into the economy. They just want to stay in their rooms or stay in the lobby. All right. Special events. If there's concerts going on, that's going to bring people in. If there's concert or if there's something going on like Oktoberfest where people go to, all the locals go to drink beer and eat schnitzel, that's going to take away. Holidays, good and bad, depending on the restaurant. Facility occupancy. If we know that last year was whatever at the hotel restaurant, but the hotel this year, for other reasons other than the food, the occupancy is declined quite a bit. That's going to also influence the people at the restaurant. Advertising promotions. Are we in the middle of something massive that's going to bring people in? Is our competitor in the middle of some kind of advertising campaign that's really working well for them, and we're just playing catch up? Quality of service and operational consistency, those are things that are just they influence it over time, but we can't just apply that to like this week or whatever. All right, so changes in operating hours, very important. If I look at last year and I apply all those other things, okay, we have the events and we have this, we add this percentage for an event, this percentage for weather, subtract or whatever, but then we don't take into account that our hours are different than last year, it's not going to be inaccurate. So we have to take that into account as well. Okay, so looking at the past, predict the future. All right, what the hell? What is the so what with the amount of people that are coming into the restaurant when it comes to ordering? All right, so what info? I don't like that bullet. Let's see. Okay, so if we know that typically we serve 1,000 guests this week, how do we apply that to our order? Let's see. So 12-ounce sirloin dinners is one of four entrees, right? Four entrees on the menu. So we expect 1,000 guests. Does that mean that I order 1,000 entrees? Of course not. Not everybody's going to order. I mean, not excuse me. I will order enough food for 1,000 entrees, but I will not order enough food for 1,000 steak, which is only a quarter of the entrees, right? So what do? Do I order 250? Well, that could make sense to some people. Actually, ordering 1,000 makes sense to some people. Um, but it's incorrect because we don't know. There's a single word that we can apply to um, the different entrees to help us determine, and that is popularity. Some things are more popular, that means more desirable. People tend to buy them more or less than others. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so we have the popularity index. We're conceding that some things sell better than others. So we have to apply that to our entrees to get us uh, accurate numbers that we can order. Okay, so you have the formula for the popularity index is total number of a specific menu items sold, and then you have the total number of all items sold. So you divide the number of the specific item, so the one of four, which was when the sirloins, what was it? 250. Actually, we don't know yet. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going all over the place. But the part divided by the whole. The part is the single item. The whole is all of the items, right? So if I know I got an example here, but let's just say again, if I sell 500, 1,000 people, of those 1,000 people, 500 order the sirloin, I divide 500 divided by 1,000, I come up with 50%, right? So 50%, that is my popularity index, 0.50. It'll work out. All right. So I have a quote something here. I have 130 sirloins out of a total of 950 entrees sold. So I divide the part divided by the whole, and I get a number less than one, right? So it should be point something. So 0.14 or 14%. That is my popularity index for sirloins. Chicken now, we can just look at chicken. We can see that out of the 950, I sold many more chicken than I did, over twice as many chicken as I sold sirloins. So I know that my popularity index is at least going to be 30. All right. Well, let's do the math. 327 divided by 950 ends up to 34%. Okay. So what? What do I do with that? All right. So I have that number. I have that 0.37 or 0.14. And now I know that this year or this week, this year or this period, I can expect X amount of people. All right. So just because I ordered 400 steaks last year doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to order 400 steaks next year because my projected amount of people is more or less. All right. So I take the number of guests expected now and multiply that times the popularity index, and that gives me the amount of portions sold. Okay. So 1,200. Now you see that I have two different items here. I have the sirloin and the chicken. Remember that the sirloin was less popular by half, by less than half, as popular as chicken, right? But that doesn't change the part of the mathematical equation of the people that we expect. The same amount of people is expected from both chicken and steak. But I apply those to that total and I'm going to get different numbers. So 1200 times 0.14. Right. So now when I'm applying the factor, I'm multiplying. So 0.14 times 1200, I end up with 168 sirloins that I can project to sell. All right. I apply that same math to the chicken, 0.34, and I get 408 portions of chicken. Right. So that's how you use a popularity index. If you're just saying, I have four things on the menu, I divide by four, and I order enough for that, or I do a fudge factor. I hate fudge factors for, you always want to add some fudge factor, but a fudge factor in lieu of doing the math is a bad thing. All right. If the math can be done, do the math. All right. So let's see. Now I'm going right into standardized recipes. Why am I going into standardized recipes? Because if I do not have a standardized recipe, everything I just said doesn't matter. All right. Now, yeah, with steaks, I said it's how many steaks? 168 steaks. So I can order 168 steaks. But I don't order steaks. I order uh, semi-prime, primal cuts of meat, and I cut the steaks up myself. Right. So uh, I need to know how big a portion is. Because if I say I'm going to sell 168 portions and I buy X amount of weight of meat, and that 168 portions the last time was 8 ounces, but now I'm just cutting away and it says 12, 14 ounces, I'm going to order the wrong amount. So that's why standardized recipes are very important. All right. So standardized recipes have the menu item name, total number of yield per total yield, which is the number of servers. So if I have a recipe and I'm trying to figure out an ingredient and it says with this recipe, I'm going to get so many portions, and I look and the total amount of this particular ingredient is X, I know that that X goes into that many portions. All right. So portion size is very important because if I just willy nilly portion size, then it's going to be a problem. Ingredient list, and then the other stuff is more about the operational part of it. But for the ordering part, those first four is what we're looking at. All right. So recipes might not yield what you need. Okay, so how am I doing on time? All right, before I get into this, I'm going to end this video and I'll start the next one. Just the whole thing I want to get at here is we forecast people. So we know how many people are coming in. So we know that we need to feed X amount of people. Of those X amount of people, we can figure out through our popularity index how many of that X amount will need this or order this particular entree or whatever. Okay. With that, I can apply that to the standardized recipe to see how much ingredients I need to per portion. So now I know that I have 250 portions. I know that I need a half ounce of this ingredient per portion. Now I know how much I need to order. Okay. That is the progression. In case if I said it all kind of confusing as we went along, that nutshell should help you out. Okay. All right. So I will see you in the next video.